Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Shadow and Sun Show. Oh my God, I can't believe he did that to me. Did you see that? See what he did? Oh my God. That's a leftover from the Hungar show.
Gotta change the name there.
Yeah, what a bastard. I don't even know how to do that right now. I'm never going to live this down.
If you go on the StreamYard on the little picture there on the three dots on the corner of your monitor, you can do change name there.
Where?
You below window, there should be you should have like a little window where you see yourself. Oh, maybe it's just me. Maybe you don't have one because you're the host. I can change my name, but is that Jack that did that?
No, that was Hungar who did that.
Ongar, change your name.
Yeah, we were goofing around. That's funny.
Is he in here? He's not even here, Ongar. I haven't seen him chat. We have the Crafting Gamer, I, and Carl. Hello, Carl. How are you doing? Patriot Hobbies. Hello. Mark's Gen Mixer. How are you doing, guy? I hope you're all having a good day.
I'm gonna kill him.
I don't know. Like I'm not that familiar with StreamYard. I've been guest on show. I haven't. Oh, you got it.
No, I just killed the names.
Oh, that's all right.
I'll figure the rest out later.
That's all right. I got my name on my shirt. So.
yeah. That's just Hungar being a Hungar, I guess. But like I was saying, today is the first installment of One on One, where I'm gonna kidnap somebody from the interwebs and bring them on the show, and we're gonna discuss two different points of view on a particular topic. As you can see from the title, Mr. Max and I have a little bit different opinion on what's more important, setting or system. And I'm going to let you go first. Give us a little lowdown on your particular opinion.
I'm very big on system guy. Like what gets me excited about RPG, I made a video about that, is like when they have like rules that are cool, like rules that are original, that are different, that that do something and I like when the rules inform the feel of a game. So that's where I'm coming from. And I like setting, but I like setting that are very deep and thorough and make sense. And I find a lot of games that kind of fail on that. So that's why I'm not too excited by games that with original setting, because most of the time I'm disappointed by setting. And also I'm this kind of like a weird guy where like, if you give me like a medieval, low fantasy, low magic setting, I'm always going to be in that. I'm always like, I don't need like I can do other thing, but with in this kind of setting, that's my jam, and I'm satisfied with that. So that's why like, I'm more excited about rules when like there's rules that do something different that say, oh, okay, now that's changed the game. That get me going. That's where I'm coming from.
Whereas I have played so many games over the years, decades, that it's for me, it's the setting, it's the world, I should say, that gets me excited. How is this world or that universe or setting, how is it different? What does it bring to the table that no other game has done before? I've played tens of thousands of fantasy role-playing games, your typical, everything from Conan to Tolkien, Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser, Elric, things like that. And you have to admit, with all of the big names out there, Tolkien and Lieber and Howard and Zelazny and so many of the great writers, that's what they did first and foremost, was give us a great world in which to imagine the characters' adventures. And for me lately, mind you, I don't buy a lot of other people's settings because they just don't appeal to me. The traditional, medieval European style, or even the Bronze Age, which is still pretty popular, just were never what drew me into the system. It was something other than Earth. Even when I play, for example, like Top Secret or Boot Hill, it's not Earth. I don't want to be playing on Earth because Earth has already happened, and I want to use my imagination to go bigger. When I play war games, I don't typically play historical war games because for me, those wars were already won, and that's just like, how we kind of lump those Civil War reenactionist guys into that certain category of wanting to bring back, something that wasn't meant to be brought back. We won that war. The good guys won that war, and to try to, relive that, that's just giving the bad guys a chance to win. And I don't want to do that, even in fantasy, especially, like WW2. For me, that would be like, no, the bad guys lost, and that's the way it was supposed to be. Let's just be grateful that happened.
But a lot of those, that's a bit out of the topic, but a lot of those old war gamer, the question they're trying to ask is, it's not about the fantasy really. It's about, if I was this general, could I have like turned the out of battle? Like it's about how much impact the general in itself has. And I think it's a different question than what we're asking. But let me ask you that: you, for most of the time gaming, I guess you were like a kind of a forever GM as well, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's the same for me. And
it's only this year that I've truly gotten to play. I've played before, but this is the first time that I played with quality DMs that I would allow now to be my dungeon master, people I trust. In the old days, it was people, trying to learn, and had every one of them were my players, and they was like, let me try it. I'm like, yeah, sure, go ahead, and it always ended poorly. When you know the game better than the DM, it's not that satisfying.
Yep. But I was like you, like I've mostly been a DM or a GM, but because that's what I like most. I like playing as well, but I really like GMing, and what I like about GMing as well is the world building. I'm a big fan of world building, and that's a way I can engage with the game in a way, even when I'm not at the table, because I'm gonna during a shower, I do some manual labor, stuff like that. During I train, I can think about what I'm gonna do in the world and stuff like that. It's a mental exercise I like, and that's also one reason why when a game come out with a setting, oftentimes I'm not that interested, because like it kind of robbed me of the opportunity to make my own setting in a way, or maybe it can give you like part of you there. And there's also a thing with the games that are set in like you say, like there's a great author like Tolkien and stuff like that started with the world building and make amazing setting, but like you said, for history, the story of those setting kind of are already been told. Like, I'm a big fan of Dune, but playing in the world of Dune kind of like there's already like a bigger story that's always going to overshadow the story of the PCs. So I'm not that excited by that. You know what I mean? I'd rather have something that is maybe different, similar maybe in a way, but original. So that's where I'm coming from regarding setting.
Awesome. Sorry, I was reading the chat. We
Yeah,
got a bunch of
right.
people that I just... No worries. I was paying attention. Just I noticed some new folks here in the chat. Crafting, you're always a welcome here, and you've been here before. Patriot Hobbies, I just saw you this morning. Mark, what's happening? Ready for the game tonight? I cannot wait. I hate long gaps in between games. That's just asking for a game to just crash and
Fizzle out.
burn. Cal, what's happening? Red Room, welcome to the show. Yeah, I know you guys' favorite settings because you guys make some absolutely wonderful settings. Hungar, you need to fix my name, please, buddy. Yeah, yeah. We're gonna have words. I don't know how to fix it, so go and fix my name, please. And Cal, but going from written fantasy to game is dependent on mechanics that help the flavor. Absolutely. For example, I'm a huge fan of Amber and the diceless role playing game, and I know a lot of people hate it because you don't get to roll dice. And I'm like, well, yeah, but you get to role play. You get to do nothing but role play. Okay, I'm bringing in the brother from another mother.
Hey, Angel.
Okay, I'm gonna have to do it when you're on my show again.
Okay, so after this show, I demand a rematch.
Next time you're on my show, I will get it fixed. Okay, bud?
I'm not waiting until Monday.
All right. Hold on a second. It stayed like that?
Yes. And I don't know how to fix it.
That is hilarious.
Yeah, it was for about 5 minutes. But I've got like 3 more shows to do between now and then. And I'll be damned if I'm going on Connell's show Sunday morning with that. That'll never end.
I didn't think it was going to stay like that. I thought it was just for like my channel.
I don't even know how to fix it myself, which is weird. But while you work on that, I wanted to ask you, Mr. Max, what games do you play for the most part?
Well, now lately we've been playing a game, a new system that we're working on with some friends. So more on that later. But I'm like, if I play an OSR game, the OSR game I like is Lamentation of Flame Princess. I just find that the rules are well written, clear and concise. They get out of the way. If I want to play like OSR style game, usually that's what I'm going through. Other than that, like I talked about in my video, I'm a huge fan of Pendragon. That's a system I love, and I've played a lot of like a regular D&D, like current edition, some Pathfinder. I haven't played some 5e.
All right, Shadow, jump over into this stream too real quick.
Oh. Okay, you know what? I can do that on another device.
I sent you a link.
That's going to be weird, right? Mark had a question here. What about a setting like Star Wars? Do you think it's large enough for the PCs not to be overshadowed by the Skywalker story? Absolutely. It's a massive galaxy that, I mean, for the most part, you just, it's just another sci-fi game, with all of the tropes and stereotypes and rules and lore that you can still use without it being all about, like you said, the Skywalker story.
Yeah, but also like Star Wars is like because like it's an epic saga in a way, but it's also like kind of like a political strife. It's not like it's two political factions opposing the Empire and the Rebellion. It's not like a metaphysical threat to the world. I don't know if you know what I mean. So even though it's an epic saga, it's kind of like more toned down in scope than something like Lord of the Ring or something like Dune with the Kwisatz Haderach that fundamentally changed the nature of the world. It's just like if the Empire is defeated, it's just like another political faction taking over. And because of that, also it means that it does leave more room for a party to evolve in it. And also in the world of Star Wars, there's a lot of place before the movie and after the movie as well. So yes,
right,
in a world like that.
Talking about Knights of the Old Republic. I'm getting ready to play that video game because it's all about everything before.
Yeah, and I played a lot of Star Wars D6 by a West End game. That's a system we run a lot of that system. I played a lot of like a World of Darkness game as well, like a bit of Vampire, a lot of Werewolf. But Yeah, and I always like the, and you know, like you've seen my last video that I made, and that's one thing I said as well. Like in the storyteller game, the creator of the game wanted to give a certain feel to the, and they created a wall that had a certain feel, but the mechanic didn't mesh out. And and that's what I'm thinking about when I like rules and setting and rules and the system. I like to think about how the system inform the type of game you're playing. I find, you know, game design is it's like a big puzzle you're trying to solve, and you're trying to give a certain feel, and you have to think about like, oh, if I make this mechanic work in this way, what message am I sending to the player? Like was it in last night Table Breaker? People were talking in chat, and they were talking about like there was a Chimerian there, and oh, you were there. It's true. But Chimerian at some point, Chimerian like to complain about like D&D being all about combat and stuff like that. But if you rules, and especially because in D&D the rules are separated in different books, and in the player and books, if you rule just that as a player, it gives you the impression that this game is about combat and loot and getting stronger, because that's what the rule emphasis, you know, that's where the rule emphasis is put on. Yes, in the DMG there's more there's a little more info that tell you about adventuring and stuff like that, and stuff outside of combat. But in the DNG it's about like character progression and combat. That's in the PHB, that's what it is.
Right. There's a little bit, you know, in the back, but most people don't get to that. You know what I mean? It is assuming a lot in the beginning of the player's handbook, and you know, that's you know, again, a product of its time. But I wanted to ask you, when are you currently working on a game?
Yeah, okay. I am.
So when you work on a game, don't you think that setting actually is like a initial part, a big part of the beginning? Would you would, if you were making a different game?
Yep.
Based, you would use completely different set of rules.
Yes.
And mechanics.
Yes, I think when you work on a game, the two should be kind of intertwined actually, because you want to have a setting, but then you kind of get a general feel of the setting, more or less detail if you want. What we're working on is like a somewhat generic fantasy, because like we want to do like a more system that can be used to different things, but the rules we're working on are to give a specific feel. Like if you, and the feel we like I mentioned in my last video too, like in DCC, the way that magic is done imply, even if you don't have any setting developed in, like there's no really setting info in DCC, but just by the rules it implies some truth about some fact about the setting. And that's something that I really like. Like I like when books have a, you know, less fluff, but let me make assumption about the setting based on the rules. You know, I think that's really cool when the two mesh together. And when there's a clash, like in the example of Vampire, when all your fluff in the books about this very torture soul and stuff like that, but all the rules don't put that don't express that at all. The rules express something completely different. So I think that, and like say, I'm not like against setting and stuff like that. I think settings can be cool and stuff like that. But I like what, like it said, like I don't like raise my nose on setting. I just get excited by rules.
Exactly. We made an announcement earlier this year. My son and I are actually going to be writing a series of settings books, because there aren't enough interesting settings out there. In my opinion, there are some good ones. There are some really bad ones, in my opinion, as well. And it seems to me that everybody could make a world. Not everybody can make a set of rules. You know, that's not in the wheelhouse of every dungeon master and player out there. But anybody and everybody can come up with a world of their own, so to speak. And that's something we're trying to do. You said something earlier. It brought to mind games like GURPS, and even to a lesser extent, the total party skills system, which is incredibly well done for trying to keep it very generic without pushing upon a setting. But a game like GURPS, it took thousands of pages to be able to get all that in to be literally the generic universal role-playing system. It's so much easier to write a system for a single genre as opposed to trying to get all the genres under one umbrella. It's kind of a shame that there weren't more generic systems out there as opposed to tailor-made for a single genre.
I like the game that are tailor made for a single genre, and actually like that came with the setting. And oftentimes, like I said, like I'm a big fan of Pendragon game, and even though like the game like Blades in the Dark is made by Yevelat, and so I won't touch it because of that, because like I cannot stand those guys. But what they made is very cool in a way. Like it's very they have those setting of like they want to make like you play a criminal, you make those iced game, and the setting is very informed by that. The rules are very informed by that. Or like I mentioned, also Torchbearer. Have you ever tried a Torchbearer?
I think I might actually own it. I could be thinking of something else. Maybe I'm thinking of Swordbearer. But real quick,
very different game.
I gotta. You know Swordbearer?
I know of it, but it's quite different.
Old, if it's what I'm thinking, it's like it's probably older than you are.
Maybe.
It's from Heritage Miniatures.
Yeah, I heard of it. I might have like heard of it, like you talking about it, or somebody in this interweb thing. I never like seen it.
Doubt that. I'll have to break it out one of these days for one of the treasure chest videos. Mark brought up Arduin, so I have to address this. How about Arduin, Shadow? Does that setting facilitate being run by other OSR systems, or do you feel Arduin works better using the rules? The rules specific to it are kind of a hot mess. So I would absolutely read through it and then realize, yeah, I can run this with any game system. It's not the some of the mechanics were ahead of their time. Some of them were, a product of their time. Mm-hmm. And with the new Arduin, we'll see what comes, from the guys that are working on it, because it's not the original guy, but there are a couple of awesome guys who, have a deep passion for the works of David A. Hargrave. I've always used Arduin as a supplement to any game I ran. Even if I was running Top Secret, you could bet there's some sort of weird Arduin connection to it.
I'm not familiar with Arduin at all. Like I know that it's a diceless system, like you said.
No, that's Amber. That's Amber.
Oh, that's Amber. Oh, sorry.
Arduin was initially.
I'm not familiar with either.
Quick history lesson. Arduin was a rules supplement to the original white box D&D. Mm-hmm. But the writer got in some trouble for not having permission, and Gygax not wanting him to write this because it was doing so well and almost overshadowing D&D for a short period in history. And so he went on and said, okay, fine, I'll take the D&D words off my book and, sell it like crazy. And it did really well. It didn't do as well as D&D, obviously. And then at a very early age, he passed away. And it was in limbo for a while. Emperor's Choice bought up the entire estate, including like literally tens of thousands of pages, hundreds of modules that were never published, artwork, and all this crazy stuff from the mind of one guy who ran 3 incredibly long epic campaigns that he used to write the books. And most of the books are like the legendary Lands of Arduin is a 900-page system agnostic book just on the world. There's no numbers in it, as in rules. There's population numbers and things like that. But it's just this gigantic encyclopedic phone book of the world of Arduin. And it was absolutely lovely. The adventures, wonderful. The lore, all of that stuff is great. So, if you're a fan of, really old school stuff, it's definitely something to get in there. Now, let me catch up with the chat again. That's a good observation that the rules imply the rules of the setting as well, not just mechanics by which we play the game. One that's worth remembering as you play. Okay. And yet, Justin, you know what I got for you, right? I left him over at Hungar's show, but yeah, double barrel, buddy. Yeah, genre is a limiting factor. Sure. Well, to a point, it's only limited by your imagination.
Yeah,
Certain games.
there is system like that, like you know, like just to take an example that people will gonna be familiar with to some extent, maybe not you, but like if you take like a D&D 5th edition, and you try to like the rules imply a much more powerful hero and stuff like that. If you try to roll through to have a game that then you have to make so much modification that it's the question, like maybe you should try a different system. You know, if you try to rip the magic out of like D&D 5th edition, you have to rip off so much of it that it might as well like start from scratch to some extent, you know. So there is a and same thing, like if I want to take a game like Torchbearer, for example, but I want to make it like a big epic where the character are very powerful, well, that wouldn't work because like there's so many rules, or there's a core rules that make it so that, well, in Torchbearer, being an adventurer kind of suck. You're kind of it's something you do out of necessity. You're kind of a loser and stuff like that. You know, it's like, you're not like those big saver of worlds. So
Like a hobo, right?
basically,
like a
yes,
hobo.
yeah. And
because that, I mean, if you think about it, they were often homeless. They
Mhm.
they had to, you know, make a name for themselves, you know, doing things, including murder hoboing, to then become accepted or, you know, revered, loved, whatever you want to call it, throughout the game setting. Bafford the Grey Master again. They were nobodies, and they became, you know, legendary by the deeds and actions that they did. And I haven't finished the end, so I don't know how they end up. But you know, they could, you know, they could get a free drink here and there just by walking into a place because, you know, they're of their fame and renown, so to speak, even though they were a couple of, you know, criminals.
Yeah, and it's like you have to earn your place in the world, and that's something I really like. That's something and to go again with one thing that also like impact setting, like, because always something I think, like, why would people go adventuring? You know, adventuring is like it's not like going on a hike. You know, you go and you face monster. You go in a dangerous world. You would take some kind of special people, like not necessarily in a good sense of special, to go do that willingly.
Well, I kind of liken it to the big game hunters of the 20s and 30s and 40s. If you think about it, they were, you know, these people who were looking for adventure in a world that was rapidly despising such things.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The coming of, you know, the modern world was really anti, you know.
Yeah, but it mean that the adventurer, it means that the adventurer are kind of like a misfit by nature. There are people that don't fit in. It's like, even if you look at the Wild West, you know, a big part of the Wild West was like when people would go on the frontier, and then civilization would catch up to them, and then they would move west, and then civilization would catch up to them, and then they would move west. There was a big part of that as well. It's the people that, you know, I'm trying to get some peace, and I don't want to be bothered by all you people. And I can relate to that. I'm living out here in the woods, and I guess you're in the mountain, you know. So I guess we can relate to that. But in your setting, like, that's a question you have to answer as well. Why would people go adventuring? And
right, unless
when you get,
well, it depends on the genre.
Yeah,
you know, if you're playing Traveler, players don't always adventure. If you're playing Top Secret, it's not really an adventure; it's an occupation. If you're playing Call of Cthulhu, you're trying to save the world because you're the only one who can, type of thing. If you're playing
in Call of Cthulhu, also oftentimes it's kind of you get involved accidentally. Oftentimes.
Yeah. And if
so
you're playing
don't
a
really have a choice.
superhero game, which I know you're not a big fan of, I think to be honest, I think there's a superhero campaign out there that you would love. You just got to find it. Most people, because I believe it or not, my biggest claim to fame was a more or less a 25-year run, 25 plus year run campaign that's still going on today. That really is a superhero campaign, but it's set in a like Star Warsian galaxy where the superpowers are more of a detriment than an actual benefit. It's kind of like the old X-Men, X Factor Mutant Chronicle, not Mutant Chronicles, the mutant, hatred of its
Yep.
of the 80s, where everybody hated the mutants because reasons.
Yeah.
And
I think
then
there's a like I'm not a fan of superheroes game, but I think there's a way to do it properly. I don't think it's like it's a verboten system, verboten genre altogether. No, I think there's a way that can be done. I don't like when it's just like about like being powerful and punching stuff. But I'm not a power fantasy guy. That's never something
right.
that appealed to me. I like when things are more toned down, more a bit gritty in every kind of setting. And like in Traveler, you oftentimes you're kind of trying to make a profit, make a living. That's what
Mhm.
you're doing.
Yeah, true power, as in
Yep.
strength or the
Yep.
ability to teleport or fly. That's never really a big issue. But I wanted to ask you real quick. In the games that you play, they're usually level based, right?
Well, the one now we're working on is skill based, so there's no level.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I played some games that are level based. Yeah.
So how do you feel, or how do you handle when characters do get powerful? Or do you have mechanics that just make it impossible, as in they're more realistic and therefore less actual magic and fantasy, more just
It's funny
not
you
less
ask
fantasy,
because before
but
this morning, I just recorded a video. I haven't uploaded yet. I'm gonna upload after this talk because my connection is very slow, so I didn't want to do the both in the same time.
right, I
Like
get that.
it takes like three times the length of the video to upload.
Mm-hmm.
But I talked a bit about that as well, and I'm what I like when the character get powerful. That is the time to get weird. That is the time when you bring in the weirdness and stuff like that. That's when you go into a cosmic level adventure, when you and planner stuff. That's where like now all the rules of, like I said, like I like to have a setting that is based realistic and stuff like that. When you get to high level, this is the time to have fun. That's the reward you get. That's the time like where you throw all this out the window and now thing gets really weird. That's
So what can we discuss what you mean by powerful then? What is high powered for you?
well, if you go in D&D, you'd be like in those higher level, like when you're so much above like the everybody in your world, the commoner. That's also something I see a lot of the difference between the new school gamer and the old school gamer. In old school style play, the commoner was of like you would meet somebody that would be level 3 in the world, it would be a big deal. You know what I mean? Or level 5, it'd be a big deal. There wouldn't be most people would be level 0, level 1. You know what I mean?
Sort of. It depends on. It depended more on occupation for AD&D. For example, a bearer or porter or a teamster, they're going to have between 2 and 7 hit points. But then when you
Yeah.
go to the kings and the lords of the land,
Yeah.
they're going to be 9th and 10th level fighters and
Yeah.
clerics and magic users.
9th and 10th level, not 20th level.
Right.
But
Well,
now,
even
but
Gygax himself didn't want anybody over 11th level
yeah,
ever. But
yeah.
and I get that, but is that because it's a challenge or too difficult to make challenges, or because it just starts getting to a point where logically every single person you bump into should have a running track of experience points? Something Arduin had was a thing called normals.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody in the game, it was the first game where everybody in the game you ran into would have a level, not just their 2 to 7 hit points. They would have a level. They might be a 15th level blacksmith. They might be a 3rd level, bartender. Not really, because all bartenders are like unkillable and should be.
Yeah. But a 15 level blacksmith is not equivalent in power to a 15 level fighter. No.
Maybe not in fighting, but in saving throws.
Yeah. Exactly.
In
Like
in maybe even in hit points, because he's sitting there working out all day long. If you think about it, the blacksmith would have more hit points than a 9th level fighter, just because the fighter has the opportunity to rest on his laurels and get drunk. The bartender's there hammering away at the anvil every day, 6-7 days a week, period. There's no break. They used to be, they used to be the most feared, in musculature type of individual in every medieval setting. You come across a blacksmith, unless he's, that 14-year-old kid, his dad died and he inherited the shop, and now he's got to, work his way up. Every other blacksmith you're going to run into is going to be a badass.
Yeah. Even like a woodcutter or a lumberjack or something like that. And like
exactly.
You're going to be fit as hell.
and in that way, Gygax's mentality sort of did him in. The whole academic, spending his entire life at, behind a book instead of out there in the real world. He would have understood that people are all gaining experience points.
But
depending on the profession would dictate how powerful physically and mentally and socially you could get.
To answer your question about why I think you shouldn't meet, but like why it wasn't done traditionally in Gygaxian or in an old school D&D, you wouldn't meet like 15 levels fighter out in the world that often. That would be pretty rare.
Right.
And I think it's a kind of question of logic, because you like I said, you have to wonder why you go adventuring, and then once you get to a certain level, you get powerful, you get money and stuff like that, you should retire. You should do something else. You should go enjoy life and enjoy the fruit of your reward. You really like so that's why you would see king level 10, stuff like that. That's all right for it, but that's pretty much as high level as you're gonna get. And
why would you unless like in the case of Conan, when he got his kingdom, he got married, had a kid, and then some evil magic user comes along and kidnaps his wife to get back at him for previous adventures, he would have just sat there on his throne for the rest of his life and got fat, old, and died. But something came up, and that then spurred him on to other stuff later on. I haven't finished reading the whole series of Conan, so
I never read the comic of Conan. I read all the Howard's novel, short story.
Right. I've got like 2 left.
Yeah, they don't go after, like the first story he wrote was about King Conan and how like this there's an assassination attempt on him, but then afterward it's all flashback from then on, like all the other story of flashback from then on, from how he got to be king. But anyway, so that's what I'm saying, and I was saying that like in the old school D&D, you would see those characters be mostly like low level, like the average level of the world was much lower than it is now. Nowadays in new school D&D, you run to higher level, like 15 level character all the time. So it does also change the nature of the world in that sense. Like that's a way. It
certainly does.
And even in the
I think it takes away a lot, because now everybody's expected to get, just to walk through all the levels and get to the high levels because all the NPCs did it. Why can't I?
And also it makes like once you pass those high level, and now you're a high level PC. Well, you're not high level than the king anyway. You're not high level.
No worries, Hunger. I actually fixed it. So it's all good. It was just you can imagine how much that would follow me around had it made it to the Connell show Sunday. I would never live it down. So it's funny as hell, but not that funny. Not a funny permanent funny. I mean, maybe it will be a permanent funny because I'm making a big deal out of it. But yeah. Thanks for making everybody laugh.
So that's how I deal with the high level play. I like it when at this point what I consider high level is when the PC become kind of exceptional in the world. That's what I would say is considered high level play. And at that point, they should do exceptional thing. Like I mentioned earlier, Star Wars is basically like a political strife, because it's only like two political factions opposing each other. And but when you become to those exceptional level of play, you should be above that. It's no time. You're not like replacing a king anymore. You're facing gods and ancient entity and stuff like that, and being from another dimension, stuff that is unknown. That's
even
like
a dragon.
Even Dragon should be Even Dragon. You should face Dragon earlier than that, I think.
Really?
Yeah, Dragon.
Like, well, I suppose. Here's my problem with dragons. I am not a tightwad. I don't care how much money and how much treasure you get. I will never be at a point where I can't handle it. I can literally start players out with all the money in the planet. They're king of the world, and I can still give them a challenge every time we sit at the table. Okay, that's not bragging or anything. It's just from decades of playing with the most high-level, high-powered characters you can imagine, and coming back to the table, day after day. And mind you, we played this campaign almost every day for 25 years up until the last 10 years. Because I was a dad. Part of my son's earliest childhood, I was still playing a lot, and we could play every day, and I was still coming up with challenges to, kick their butts, not just physically and hit points, but economically, or even with their friends and loved ones. I could come up with a challenge. Superman's been in comic books for, getting really close to kind of like 100 years. Okay, and there's never been a month where they didn't put out a Superman comic book. Okay, and reading comics was actually a really good way to come up with new and interesting challenges, not just the supervillains, but the interpersonal things, the Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen kind of thing. It was very helpful as a youngster to learn those sort of story techniques, to bring in the other people into the story. It's not just endless, parade of strangers, new town, new adventure, new town, new adventure. No, I would make people that they had to, interact with, and eventually, hopefully care about, so that, I could do the Jimmy Olsen and the Lois Lane thing. Because if your characters keep going from town to town and never making any friendships or any acquaintances other than the party, that's really shallow and really unrealistic and really unsatisfying. It's so much more fun when you can get the players invested in an NPC for whatever reason, and then they actually care about this person, and then when they care about them, you can use that to hook them into different stories or different quests and adventures.
And like I heard people say that the interesting part about Superman, because like Superman is so powerful, the interesting part is like, can he live a normal life on
Sorry.
And my good buddy Bonehead. That won't leave you. And
I was, it's funny because I was actually watching a video today on the proper way to headbutt somebody. So
already, you have to come with the. As a lad, I like the cartoon of about the Silver Surfer quite a bit. And what I like about this cartoon about the Silver Surfer is the Silver Surfer is like very powerful, very little things that threat physically to him.
Yep.
But the whole story is about atonement. Basically, he did those bad thing when he was brainwashed, and he had a surfboard. Yes. And now like everybody hates him because of what he did, and now he's trying to make up for it. And that's an interesting story. He's so powerful, you make his power level so high that you take this out of the way. Nobody really can challenge him, like except Galactus himself.
Right.
And that can be an interesting story. I find those story can be harder to accomplish in role-playing game when you have a whole party of they work well for one-on-one character and stuff like that. But when you have
I
like a
can see
whole
that.
party, I think I find they're a bit harder. They're not impossible to do, but they're not. Maybe I'm not so skilled in that way. Maybe that's not where my strength lie. But yeah, there could be like interesting story there as well, and same thing with
It's
Superman
funny
and
you
stuff like that.
mentioned Silver Surfer because that is one of my favorite superheroes of all time.
Well, he's one of the coolest.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, somebody actually called me in another part of my life. It's still a thing right now, but that's what they call me because that's in a nutshell. If I die and get to go to heaven, heaven for me is going to be being the Silver Surfer, going out and exploring God's creation, going from planet to planet to planet, and just marveling at all the cool stuff that I think is out there. I could be wrong, but that's me.
Yeah.
I wanted to welcome Guardian of the Rune, NJP. Have we met before? Because I don't recognize your name.
He's on my channel often. I see him often in my comment.
Okay.
So maybe,
Welcome to the show. I hope you subbed. If not, I appreciate it. If you don't like what you see, I get it. I'm just a bonehead. Feeling my old geezer. Tried and true.
And regarding what Guardian of the Runes say here, like getting a bunch of hit point every level would affect the setting. Like I think one thing that would affect the setting quite a bit as well. Like one thing that bothers me in the modern D&D are those cantrips. Cantrips kills me. Like it's like because then there's so much magic, and also there's no requirement to be a wizard anymore. Anybody can do it. You can be a wizard with a -1 in intelligence to your bonus to intelligence.
Do you remember how cantrips used to work?
Sorry?
Do you remember how cantrips used to work?
Cantrips used to be I don't remember exactly the detail. No, go ahead.
Okay, they used to be a 0 level spell, and
but you had to spend a 1 level slot. No.
Oh, you'd get 2 or 4. I forget. 2 or 4 would take up 1 spell slot.
Yeah.
Okay.
I remember you still had to.
They still took up slots. You even if you only memorized 1, well, you wasted a spell slot on 1 cantrip.
Yeah.
And I'm playing the magic user in AD&D in Bloodworth's game, and every game I still have. I can't remember if it's 2 or 4, but I have a couple of cantrips always in place of a first level spell that are things like unlock and something else, so I can make a key. But they're basically my last ditch. If I ever get imprisoned, the classic trope of getting locked up and they take away all your stuff. Well, I've always got those 2 cantrips up here that'll get me out. And then what we do, I don't know. But I can at least unlock either the shackles or the door to get out of the jail if that ever happens.
Because that's the thing, like the cantrips. Yeah, the cantrips, they used to use spell slot, but you didn't have to memorize them. You always had them memorized, right? That was the difference with the level 1 spell.
I don't know about that because
no?
you could be right and I could be wrong. I don't remember. I just know that I'm only memorizing, or only ever going to use the same ones because that's why I bothered to get them at all, because a lot of them are, they're useful. I'm not going to put them down or anything. But when I'm more often than not wishing I had more magic missiles than anything else, it's a big deal. Because in the game that I'm in, I'm doing more with my magic missile spell when it comes to combat, at least, than anything else. So when I heard that you could just cantrip, I'm like, okay, this is a video game pushing the X button and just spamming it. That's
and now,
all
like, you have a class that got like cantrip that can do damage. It's an attack spell. That's really like you're spamming that out, like, and that's actually what all we do.
All it is.
Yeah,
and it seems that most games that have come out after a certain point are just trying to emulate video games because they're so terrified of losing, customers to a video game. And I'm like, that was never the case. I'm a huge video game fan. I'm a huge role-playing game fan. But I'd rather play a role-playing game than a video game any day of the week.
And they now, like, the cantrips they can do so much more, and they do stuff that often are just like a useful effect, but they effect that are so useful that if you can cast a cantrip like that, like I often say, like, why would you go adventuring then? just just open a shop and do your cantrip all day to people that come in. And if you had like if you have like magic that was so abundant and so freely available, and anybody can learn basically because you don't have a intelligence requirement to be a magic user. Everybody, that's the way that I say rules inform setting. It would mean that in your setting, if you had that, if with those rules, it would mean something in your setting that everybody would like the society would organize itself to get everybody learn some magic. So you would get a much
eventually
more
have a crazy world. Yeah, you'd eventually have a
Exactly.
world that you wouldn't recognize. Within one generation, the world, it would be like modern Earth from, the difference between, the 1800s to now. In a couple of generations, we have things that are essentially magic items. These things right here are absolutely staggering. If you could explain it to
that's the thing.
a 49er.
When magic become like so reliable and always available, it become technology basically. Just become like another thing you can just do. Just like making a phone call or taking a picture or whatever. It's like that's what it turned to, and that's a clash I find in the. Sometimes a clash I find in the between the rules and the setting in modern D&D. I think those two don't mesh that well together because of that. So you have to make like big exception and try to do some headcanon to excuse why. And same thing when you in modern D&D, or those even like Forgotten Realms, stuff like that have always been very high setting and very. You got all those like different species living and working together and stuff like that. And at some point, it doesn't make that much sense either. I know you're a big fan of. You're not a fan of. You hate the race as class thing, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not partial really to one way or the other. I can take it or leave it, race as class, but I can understand why it was made. I think that the race as class was a way to reinforce the setting in a way, because if you were a dwarf,
only if you look at it from a Tolkien point of view, where the elves are diminishing and getting ready to leave the world. In other worlds, elves would rule the world with impunity, being immortal and magic users. The limits that they put on elves that I despise the most was the inability to ever be able to get high enough level magic user to make the magic items that they're actually famous for having made. Elven boots and cloak, you need a permanency spell. Okay, that means you need to be a 16th level magic user, but in first edition, it was almost impossible unless you were the NPC type of thing. And I'm like, no, elves would literally rule the world. And I also looked at them, as Tolkien did, as kind of like the equivalent of just a little bit less than angels, on Earth. And yes, they could be evil and they could be malicious and awful, but they could also be capable of, incredible goodness. And it just seems to me that it was, more of a way to keep people from wanting to run nothing but elves, because I had that actually be the problem with one of my campaigns, is nobody wanted to run anything but elves because they were far superior to everything.
Yeah, but I think when I say it informs a setting as well, because like those restrictions were for PCs, because you could have NPCs, elves and dwarf, that would have class in their own right and stuff like that, like with the dwarven cleric and stuff like that.
Or even the dwarven cleric.
Yeah,
from
the way I always
original.
The way I always saw it is that elves and dwarf have their own diversity as well, but because of their nature, most dwarf stay in their mountain, most elf stay in their forest. They're not that interested by the outside world. They do their own thing. They're in their own like fantastical society that are very prosperous and absolutely wonderful. So they're not too interested with the outside world. But there's a specific type of elf and a specific type of dwarfs that go out and adventure. And that's why it's become a class in itself. You're basically like a dwarf adventurer or a elven adventurer.
Except for the fact that with that you get no clerics, thus no healing.
Well, that's the thing. If they are dwarf cleric and they are dwarf cleric in the world, they stay in their mountain. They stay in the citadel. They stay in the same thing with the high level magic user elves. They don't
You
go
also
around
get
in
no
the world.
thieves. You also get no thieves,
Yeah,
which I think is a mistake because you would have dwarven thieves
yeah.
and you would have elven thieves. That's why
Well, also
I didn't like the race
thief.
as class because it prevented them from doing certain specific things, not from going out and adventuring, but from doing very specific things. Now in AD&D, you could, which is funny because everybody can be an unlimited thief.
But
Okay,
thief also is a specific case because in the first edition there was no thief class
right,
because thief
right.
was like thief was what are you doing? Like every character was a thief. It's just like you were going down to rob
Yeah, I know.
tombs.
It's funny, huh? That's hysterical because they're all murder hobos before
Exactly.
murder hobos was a thing.
Yeah.
And with the racial because even because I know I'm like my opinion sounds borderline to third edition and up where everybody could be anything. I don't think that's the case at all. There are very subtle level limitations that should exist. But again, you're talking about a magical situation where you can use magic to circumnavigate around those limitations, not just for non-humans, but think about a human who comes into being as wants to be a magic user, but he got a 15 intelligence. Well, he's going to get to a point where he can't cast 7th or 8th or 9th level spells because of intelligence. Now he's got to go seek out one of those magics that allows him to get past that. So it's not a game killer for me. It's just that I like the idea of thieves, assassins, and clerics as non-humans because they really do spice it up as opposed to like the elven fighter magic user kind of thing. That's all they were. They could use magic and they could fight.
And
Well,
I think it would make sense for those class that are would be like people that we outcast from society anyway. So it makes sense for those people to go out and venture. Yeah, I could explain like the dwarven cleric staying among in the dwarven society, and the elven super high magic user staying in the elven society. But yeah, the thief, the assassin, the scoundrel, yeah, they would go out and venture. That could be seen. Yeah.
Or even rangers or druids. There's a lot of, especially the subclasses of fighters, clerics, and thieves. An assassin. You're telling me dwarves didn't have assassins? I mean,
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's some things, especially when you think of some of the classes names are, things that everybody had. Everybody had the equivalent of, an assassin or, maybe a ranger, because elves would definitely have rangers. If you think you could win the argument that an elven ranger would be less efficient than a human ranger,
but that's not the question. The question is, would a elven ranger hang out with the party of adventurer? In certain circumstances, I guess they could, but
if you can get to the point where they're going to actually hang out with things other than elves, then you're already there. And if you're just going to run like if you're going to run like an elven campaign, okay, well then because I had to. There were so many times where everybody just wanted to run elves. I'm like, why? Well, because they're better. They live forever. Okay, right off the bat, living, or 3,000 years as per the old DMG.
Yeah.
That is so long that you could just literally go, okay, DM, wake me in 1,000 years. Okay, you know what I mean?
And it's
it's too tempting. It's just too tempting to want that.
And it is something that modern setting don't take into consideration, like how much would we change your perspective living that long, like how much Max from Max Liao from Legend of Myth often talk about that, you're not in a rush, you're not in like humans, we have short-lived in the D&D world. So yeah, I agree with that sentiment. I think the people of East Palestine are getting a raw deal. But human were short-lived in the D&D world, so we want to.
Incredibly.
So we have this urge to do stuff. But
Yep.
elves just look at us and say like, what are you doing? Like, why are you so frantic? Why are you so? It make no sense. And I can see also that an elf that would join a party of human or a party of a diverse crew, because it could be some elf and halfling in that, would probably like a younger elf that is kind of curious about the world and stuff like that. And I assume that when he got his fill of that, then he would go back to the elven community and then do his elven stuff. And then he would like start studying magic
And it
for
wouldn't
this,
even be,
this
and nobody
serious.
would notice he was gone.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody would even
but
notice. It's
but
like,
that
oh, you were
that
gone for 50 years?
Hmm.
Yeah, let me tell you about this great adventure with these. It'd be like us talking about playing with our dogs and cats.
Yeah.
I went away for the weekend to take my dog to the, out camping. It was wonderful. You should have seen him frolic and, oh, you know what I mean? It would be the same kind of thing.
That's it. I went on a weekend camping, basically. And it's once they got that out of their system, they go back to and then they start learning like real elven magic, and they start becoming. But that's after their adventure career. So that's one way I'm saying that. Oh, that's a rule that exists for gamist reason. Obviously, like of course, like you said, to limit people for. But it can inform the setting in a way. I think like that's something that really excites me. That really find it interesting.
Yeah, it's just for me lately. It's the last couple of years we've seen this glut of clones of
Yep.
one version of D&D or another.
Yep.
If you've got some new take on it, you have to admit they have to kind of come up with a little bit of both mechanics, or maybe even a little bit more on the mechanics side, to make it something completely different and their own. Otherwise, they're just filing off some serial numbers on different parts of AD&D and slapping them together.
That's something I agree with you. That's something I agree with you. We don't need that's not the thing I find that's not what I'm saying when I say, oh, I'm excited by new system, because those are not new system. They're like system rewrite and stuff like that. They're the same. They're so similar that you can play the same adventure in one system or the other. Like I said before, when I play OSR game, my favorite system to run is Lamentation of the Flame Princess, just because I like how the rules are written and stuff like that. I like how it's simple. It doesn't get in the way. The book is very tiny. But something that's been written for white hack or black hack or all those, they're all the same thing. They all work similarly enough. And maybe one of those system is gonna have like a specific rule for something that they try to do. But basically, they're interchangeable, and that's all right too.
That's why lately, I tried to give some of them, the benefit of the doubt, hoping that they're going to bring something besides just, strength, intelligence, wisdom, dex, constitution, charisma. Oh, okay. Well, already it's D&D. If you've got, the least you can do is rename the stats right off the bat. Let's start with, that's why I liked the game Men. At least they had the decency to, rename the things that we knew what they were anyways. You want to call it might, that was something I really enjoyed about the old video game Might and Magic. They at least, did one might, okay, but then intelligence, wisdom, dex, okay, shut up with D&D.
And also if what you're doing in combat, for example, you roll an attack and you try to beat a static number of the armor class, if you do that in every different game, it's gonna feel the same. If you do something different, their opposed roll, then already you're putting a spin that is fun. Okay, now it's gonna change things. Or do you introduce more decision making because that's something that I find with D&D combat, that something can be boring. There's low decision making. There's if you're not playing a magic user, there's not that many decisions that are not obvious. What you should do. There's oftentimes an optimal thing. Well, I'm a fighter. I'm gonna target the magic user and go kill him first.
Right. Right. And that bugs me because I've seen in so many situations where the DM doesn't play the tactics of the monsters correctly.
Yep.
There have been situations where certain people or characters or whatever should have just flat out died and didn't. And that bothers the hell out of me. Once we're in combat, I'm not going to hold punches. People are going to die if you guys make stupid mistakes. And if you think the bad guys aren't going to target the magic user and the clerics first, they'll put some meat fields up in front, but those archers,
I could see some race, some monster not doing that. Like if they're superstitious, like maybe like orcs or afraid of the magic user, so they try to stay away. But that's something you can include as well in your. You can role play as when you role play the monster as well.
But then wouldn't they just run away at the sight of every magic user?
Yeah, that could be done as well, and try to ambush them, and then when they have like a definite advantage, yeah, that's something that can be fun to see if they know that they're. I want to address the comment of a Guardian of the Rune there. I just want to say like character option being locked between certain race. If you look at a system like Axe, Adventure Conqueror King system, that's something they do as well. Like they make you have multiple classes, but each race have their own. It's like each race have their spin on similar class basically, and I think that's an interesting way you can do it. Kind of lock the class between race.
Right, because all they did was because like in AD&D, your non-humans could be multiple classes at once, which to be honest, I think everybody is, but we'll get into that in a minute.
Yeah.
But what they did was they just took fighter magic user, assassin magic user, and that's what they gave for Axe in the first book. In the other book, they had some other ones, which is fine because I don't know about you, what you've done for a living in your life. I've had many jobs and many right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if someone's going to tell me that I'm only this one thing, you know what I mean? That's why I like skill-based systems so much, because they allow the possibility that you were this, then you were this, then you were this, and there's none of this stupid, oh, well, you can't use your thieving abilities until you're one level above your old profession. You know what I mean?
No, that I never like been a fan of that. Like it became like a bit clunky and very gamey in my opinion.
What it was limiting and punishing.
Yeah, but oftentimes what I saw
to try and use the actual rules, but then we're going to punish you for using the actual rules.
Yeah, but oftentimes I saw those in a class-based system. I often see them more like how your character approach a problem more than an actual job. You know what I mean? It's more like an attitude toward you're a fighter. Well, you're gonna solve your problem with fighting. You're a magic user, you're gonna solve a problem with magic.
That's what I liked about Palladium. I don't know if you ever played any Palladium system. Yeah, you would take your class. You take your class, but then you got a whole bunch of skills that were part of that. But then you had a whole bunch of stuff to tweak it and go, okay, so you're a fighter, but you do want to take a little bit of tracking, or you maybe want to take some other whatever skill. Let's take your pick, but you tweak that character a little bit more fine-tuned to be a more fleshed out, rounded out person who has all kinds of things. It's like Omen and myself, we have a fascination for lock picking. Probably my fascination was practical from my previous career. Omen, I don't know, but let's assume it was just because of D&D, and he. All right, we can officially be friends. So you understand that doesn't make you a thief. You know what I mean? I've stolen stuff. I'm not going to lie, but does that make me a thief? Well, maybe in God's eyes.
Yes, it does.
In game mechanics, I can't find and remove traps to save my bacon. Okay, if someone really puts up a trap, like in a building, in a modern building, nobody can detect those. You know what I mean? If I try to break into Area 51, I'm getting caught. Okay, those traps are going to catch me. Okay, but out in the woods, maybe traps and snares, that's a different thing.
Yeah, but
that all depends on whether you're on your A game that day or whether you were drinking the night before. But we have so much that real people have so many different facets that that's why I like class based. I mean, skill-based systems because you could really make a character that has all kinds of tricks up their sleeve, regardless of what hat they're wearing that day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I like skill based system, and I like those also when you get better by doing the thing. In a way,
Right.
yeah.
I always thought
I
that
think
you literally would need to keep a running XP total in every skill. Every time you did something, you get like 10 points. Okay,
that's what we're
10
doing
points.
in the system. That's what we're doing in the system. It's not exactly like 10
I know
point, but yeah,
it
you
seems like a lot of work, but that's how life actually works. You know what I
we're
mean?
trying
If
to
you
do it
do
in a way that
something,
is somewhat simple enough, but
because it is a game.
yeah, because it's a game. It's always, and that's something also that excites me so much about game design and rule setting is like finding this balance where you can find something that is like deep enough to be engaging, to have like your teeth sink in, crunchy enough that it's not like just slop, but also like digestible. And like you say, like a Palladium, like there's a lot of those games that I didn't never played because I come from northern Quebec. A lot of the game didn't make up to make like it was before internet as well, like when I was growing up. So well, we didn't have internet, like it came a bit later where I was. So we didn't get like those games that didn't get translated in French, we didn't get. And even those that did, sometimes they didn't reach us because we were so far away. So there's a big like space of game that completely escaped me because of that. That's just the reality of the thing.
You'll get the games you were meant to get.
Yeah.
I
got enough. I got enough. I have my I never like lacked something to play.
Exactly, and it's kind of ridiculous when you think about it. If because I do the prepping videos. And if you could only take 3 games with you to bug out, or 3 books, what would they be?
One of them would be bringing an RPG game would be in the books. Like I would.
No, I mean, what 3 game books would you take
with
if
the
you're
games
going to
books
bug out?
Well, LOTFP would be one for sure. Would be my retro clone for sure. Also, the book being small would help if I was to book the book.
Which one?
Lamentation of the Flame Princess.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that would be one. Like, if I was to bug out, then the book is small and stuff like that. I would love to get maybe Star Wars D6 would be fun, or Space D6 now. Like, I need to look into that. They made like a generic version. If I want a fantasy one, a science fiction one, and I would say Pendragon, but I think I'm very like in a mood for Pendragon lately. I think I'm a bit overly obsessed about this game lately, just because like I've been a while since I played it. I really feel like playing it. But that's like I said earlier, like I prefer to DM than be a player. Pendragon might be the one exception. That's really a game I want to play and I like to play in more than running. That's weird. But what would be?
Not at all. I mean, you'll get to a point that one day you will want to play more than anything else. Maybe because you've got the right circle of friends, and you trust them to be better at it than you, or at least as good. I'm going to be in GM Fritz's Axe game soon, I hope.
Oh,
welcome to the show, Fritz.
Max Leo is going to be in there as well, right?
I'm hoping so. James L will be there, and a few others. And but it's only because I this last year I made it a point to start playing with these guys online, and I don't just jump into any old game. I've got to trust them. From what I've heard talking with them, that okay, your stuff. It sounds like you've been doing it long enough. I'll give you a chance. I'll join your game. Let's see where this goes.
I need to do that as well. I need to find some game online at some point because now it's hard because I'm so damn busy. But like living here, I'm living in the middle of nowhere. There's nobody around, so it's kind of hard to find game as well. And I had a friend. Right. I had friends, but like
you'll find that it's really refreshing, and it gives you a perspective that you might not have had when you're dungeon mastering for other folks. Because when you're behind the driving, when you're holding the steering wheel, you don't really think the same way. It's hard to describe, but I'm glad I finally got to do this because I've been dungeon mastering for Shauner's gonna say blah, 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 whatever, Shauner, dude. I've been doing it. You've never seen my games. You don't know who I'm playing with. So, and he's seen me play in Rick's game. I know how to role play, as do my friends that I've been gaming with for decades. But when you're always the DM, you just don't see things the same way as the players do. You think you do, but you don't.
Well, also it's good to experience. Yeah, it's good to experience what other DM do as well, and it's good to remember how it is to be a player as well. Yeah, I think it's good to have to be on both sides of the table. Yeah, Fritz.
Hey,
I agree.
Dan, are you new? Because I don't recognize your name, and you're 58 and still losing at Pong. You mean the Pong or the Pong? And Guardian says ACK is a system that has setting built into its rules, but not so much you couldn't make it generic for your own campaign. Yeah, I've seen that just by subtle little things. Even little things like just changing the names of the professions can inform what the world is like and what you do and what you don't allow. And then of course there's the monsters and things like that. I try to not use a lot of the same monsters over and over again. But at the same time, there's a lot of monsters I just absolutely refuse to use.
Oh yeah, which one of those?
Medusa. Medusa is one of my I really try not to use.
Oh really?
Because because Medusa was one thing.
Yeah.
It was one person, and I don't like the generic, using of that as a race of Medusa. I'll just throw something else in there. If I want to turn my players to stone, I'll just throw 50 basilisk at them.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
When I run, what I like to do, I like especially in low level, that most of the enemies they're gonna encounter are gonna be like people, not necessarily human, but people.
Right.
I keep the weird monster for a little later on, or like stuff that are weird. Like to keep this. I agree with that comment a lot. I really like the 16th or 17th century setting of that's kind of like the default assumption of a Lamentation of the Princess. As to the X-rated material, like I said, that's something like Lamentation of the Princess is my favorite system, but I don't like their supplement because their supplement are like too edgy for my taste, but edgy in a way that like something that would be like edgy in the 90s, like oh they got like sexual content and stuff like that. It's very mature and adult, and they say, well, that doesn't like it doesn't like titillate me. Like it's like, well, now like every other woman is selling nude online, stuff like that. Like we're past the way that sexual content is edgy. You know what I mean? Just like
yeah, kind of
like we're such in a sexualized society that like what you're trying to do, you're trying to be edgy. Like yeah, that would have been like shocking like 20 years ago. We're not there anymore, So I think it kind of missed the mark. It missed the mark a bit on that point, and just like that's almost just like kind of cringe in a way. Just like just like I see what you're trying to do. It's not hitting the mark.
Yeah,
I like the rules.
Hey, you got an invite right here. You got an invite from Mark, and I can attest he runs a good game. Next time we're going to be playing Amazing Adventures, a pulp game you might be interested in. I'm looking forward to it.
But it's not gonna be until like probably until the summer, because now I'm working on something here. I'm very, very busy. I'm starting a business.
Well, he's also in our GURPS game with Bo, so he's kind of tied up. So
yeah, that's something I want to do. I'd like to do Twitter, but
I'm just using that as a not pressuring you at all.
That's the thing. It's so little time.
Than to pressure you into hurry up, because then you burn out and we don't get the game that we would like. When you are as enthused about Axe as you are right now about Deadlands, I'm there, because I'll probably be in your Deadland game too, because I'm king of the Wild Frontier, I guess, when it comes to the Wild West RPGs. This will be the third year running that I've dedicated all of April to the Wild West games, and I'm still not done. I still got a crap ton of cowboy games to show off.
Did you look at
So-
Cow Puncher from the Basic Expert?
Not yet.
It's pretty good. I'm not a Western guy myself. I was reading that. I really like what he did with the rules. Like it's simple, but like there's very cool stuff. Like you find the gun, like you're gonna hit something, you know, and just like then you just have the people to try to dodge. You know, there's some fun thing in there. It's a good like it's a good little book. Just a little
Hold
plug
on
there.
1 second. I'll be right back. Hold
All
on
right.
1 sec.
I'll look at the chat then. Ax will bought it. Come on, chat. Give me something to talk about. We'll get there. Maybe me too. Call. So I don't know what to do that. No problem, Max. Open invite for whenever. Welcome to try out the game. I run and see if you. Do you have like a YouTube channel as well, Marks? I don't. Mark. I guess I don't think I. If you do, I don't think I'm subscribed to you. I never saw your name before, or maybe didn't ring a bell. I probably like a cross path in some chat room somewhere. And you're free tonight, Max? Want to join us on Geek channel for Drinking Quest? No, tonight I got something, unfortunately. And I would have loved to join you for Drinking Quest. When the old geek like talked about it first, I was that sounded a lot of fun, but also it's Lent at the moment, so I'm not drinking. So that's the problem as well. If you do that against past Easter, I'll be interested in joining. Or if it was on a Sunday, then I can drink on Sunday because there's no Lent on Sunday. But it would be a lot of fun. I would have to watch in the replay because I got something tonight, unfortunately.
So you gave up drinking for Lent?
Yeah.
My son gave up chips.
Chips, yeah. That's good
Yeah.
to make some sacrifice.
I was amazed.
Yeah.
If you know my family, that's a biggie. I was really proud of him. Yeah.
Yeah. It's going to be good for me too because it's always good for you because it's good for the soul, but it's I got a bit fat too during winter. I need to be careful. Yeah, I have a channel, but it's just getting started. I need to look you up, Mark.
He's a regular on Connell's Sunday movie review. He's been there since the beginning, and he's a good guy. And one of these days, he and I and our kids are going to do some sort of crafting thing together. Just to get the kids involved, in the hobby.
Yeah,
and
I don't watch the movie review. I don't watch movies, so I'm not into. I don't know why. I'm not into
I know.
I'm
not. I've gone years without watching a new movie, but
yeah,
I'm doing it for Connell, and my son really enjoys doing it, and it's been actually good for him because otherwise he would just be watching the internet, and once a week he and I will watch for the most part what is an old movie. We've watched Casablanca, Beastmaster, just a whole bunch of different movies. We watched Citizen Kane. He would have never watched it had it not been for the guys on that thing. And there are movies out there that are healthy and kind of important for our society.
And that's the thing too with when you have like a child, you can share with them those movies that have been made in a time where the world wasn't so crazy, but
exactly
we're worth watching. But nowadays, there's nothing new really that excites me. It's always like I got a lot of apprehension. Even when I do something that I should like, it's just like it's gonna be tainted.
Well, that's why I only watch old movies for the most part. Having worked in Hollywood, I know who the bad guys are, and it's amazing when I tell people things and they're like, well, I can separate the art from the artist. It's like, well, then that makes you not really a good person because you're saying it's okay that they are doing these horrible things, but they're not doing it on screen. Well, of course they're not doing it on screen because they would be in jail.
Also that's part of what the artist, the values that's gonna transpire to the art as well, and then it's gonna consuming the art is gonna transpire on you. RPG grandma.
Yeah, she's a wonderful new talent. We just met, and you know she and I were talking about stuff that I thought I was the only person who had a copy of. So I'm like, wow, you know, there's somebody else out there been collecting this stuff as long as me, and you know has these ancient memories. Because I started playing at a very early age, but I got paid to be a dungeon master when I was 14 to about 18 at a game hall where I was the youngest person there. But yet I was learning from all these people our own age now that had been playing, you know, almost 10 years by the time I got into the hobby and met these people. So they knew what they were doing, you know. So I was learning from really talented dungeon masters back then. It wasn't like a lot of people where we were just playing with the local teenagers. No, I was playing with people twice and 3 times my age and still being the dungeon master and still filling a table, you know. So it's nice to meet people that have been in this, you know, way back, you know, like she has. Not saying you're old, Grandma. You're you know, as young as, you know, any of us here. But it you know, just warms my heart to know that there are still people out there with, you know, the staying power, because so many people like get into the hobby and leave for a decade and come back. You know, not that that's bad. I'm glad you guys are here, but you know, we need everybody in the hobby to stay in the hobby the right way, I guess.
You know, one thing that's saddened me, like at some point I was moving a lot, and I was moving so much that I didn't unpack all my books all the time, my moving books all the time. Like some stuff would just stay in the closet in the box, and then I would be ready to move again. And at some point I realized that I lost a box of books and a lot of my old RPG books. I lost a lot of the books I had when I was young, and that's really something that saddened me in a way. I have those things that I lost. Yeah, I think we've been on for a while now. I think we should start to wrap up.
We
maybe
covered everything. I just wanted to, you know, make sure, you know, we got as much time to hang out together as possible.
That was a fun chat. It was I think we covered a lot of ground and very nice conversation.
And, you know, I'm going to take away some stuff that I hadn't thought about, and I hope you with the same, and everybody else. You know, none of us is 100% right. None of us is 100% wrong. Well, there are some people, but they're not here tonight or today.
But that's the thing also. It's a big hobby, and we can have difference of opinion. We can enjoy the engage in a different way, and it's, you know, sometimes, and it's fun sometimes to write each other and, you know, like, say, oh, you're wrong, so like, but it's in good nature, like it's good ribbing. You know what I mean? It's like
exactly. If you can't do that, then you're not really friends.
Exactly.
You know? I mean, unless, you know, somebody's out there really being an asshat. You know, and you know, because I'm friends with a lot of people that I know for a fact we have some opinions about things that just wouldn't mesh, you know, anywhere but here in this hobby. You know, if we tried to do certain things, if we were, you know, out stuck camping, you know, against our will or something, you know, or stuck on a desert island, you know, you know, well, maybe not, but you know, in other situations, we would definitely disagree a lot. But when it comes to the hobby, that's mandatory that we all love and appreciate this hobby and want to make it better than it's ever been, because we have that within our ability now that we're, you know, all connected and all able to, you know, reach out, have a conversation any old time, you know, instead of, you know, without the internet. It's been a blessing in that regard, and we should really take advantage of it. I've had some incredible conversations with people like this one that I never would have dreamed of years ago. You know, I would have never met people on, you know, thousands of miles away, and yet still be able to game with them, and or, you know, pick up the phone, so to speak, and say, hey man, what are you doing? Just shoot the breeze, so to speak.
Yeah, we never had this chat otherwise. And, you know, like, in the end of the day, like, it's just a hobby. We're not like, there's no, our life is not at risk. No, it's something we do for fun. It's something we do in our spare time. There's no like it's no like important. So yeah, let's enjoy. People enjoy what they enjoy. We can play in different way. That's all right as well. You know, it's like, it's not, there's no lives on the line here. You know what I mean?
Well, no, I mean, to an extent, though, if you actually go forward with your game, then we'll all be able to say, oh, yeah, I knew him back when, and we may have helped you get your star on the Walk of Fame next to Gary Gygax, things like that, and I want to help you guys. I've reviewed a lot of games from people that I've actually had conversations with, where back in the day that wouldn't have been possible. I would have never, I'd have had to stand in line for, a couple hours to get Gygax's autograph, and probably had to pay $20, now, I'll just buy your game and ship it to you with a $20 bill, and you can autograph it and send it back to me,
You remember in the old story about Gygax putting his phone number out there, and then you could people would just call him for a question about the game, and you just him at his house answering.
That's awesome.
Yes. Yeah. He would apparently and there was the story people say, oh, we're playing the game, and then this issue come up, and we didn't know what to do, and the guy actually just reply, so what have you done? And then people say, oh, we did that, and say, and that's all right, and that's it. He was a cool guy. He got it. Yeah. Anyway,
Yep.
I'll have to go take care of some stuff.
Yeah,
it was a very fun chat. I'm glad we had that, Shadow.
Yeah, and I'm going to do this as a regular thing, a one-on-one, and I don't know who's next week, but throw out some suggestions, folks. If there's somebody who wants to come and have a one-on-one, maybe you've heard something me say that you don't agree with and you'd like to discuss it, that's what it's all about. One-on-one, we'll pick a topic and beat it until it's a fine pace.
That sounds like a plan. I'll look forward to that. Those conversations are always fun to have, and to witness as well.
Yeah, exactly. I can't tell you how many times I've been busting my ass, laughing my butt off in the chat, from something someone said, and sometimes that's how we meet. Is through these chat. The chat, on the side here. That's how I got in. Thanks to Cal and Grim for telling me to do this. That's how I met all you guys. And Cal and Grim.
That's how I got my start as well. My channel grew somewhat fast because of that. Because I've been active in the chat and stuff like that. A lot of face I recognize. Yeah.
And we will support guys like you, and because they supported guys like me and my son, we'd still be back at 170. A year ago. Now we're cruising up on 600. In 1 year we tripled our numbers, and you'll probably soar past us. It happens.
That's I like to see our side of the hobby get a bigger voice as well. We see a lot of those young D&D player, and they have a right to exist. I like to make fun of them sometimes, but they have a right to exist, and they have the right to do the stuff. But you got those people with 500,000 subscriber or 100,000 subscribers, and it's fine. It's good for them, but I like to have our side of our voice heard a little bit more as well, old gamer and kind of more old school sensibility. Yeah, even if we're not old like John or stuff like that, like John, the basic expert. He's not old.
None of us are getting any younger, and even people like Jenny D will someday look back and go, "God, those old farts were right."
I think she's already getting there. Anyway, nice talking to you.
Have a great one, everybody. Enjoy the heck out of your weekend. We love you guys, and we will see you real soon. And make sure you subscribe to all these wonderful people in the chat. If I could put the links in right now, I would have, but you know who they are. Go give them some love and take care, everybody.
Take care.